The camera pans over a quiet suburban neighborhood, the sun casting long shadows on perfectly trimmed lawns. A woman, calm yet determined, walks into the courthouse holding a folder tightly against her chest. Onlookers assume it's just another routine case, but behind her eyes lies a storm of secrets untold. She had filed for divorce quietly, avoiding attention, carefully hiding her turmoil from friends and family. But the judge, a keen observer of human behavior, senses something unusual. He doesn't just see papers, he sees patterns, inconsistencies, whispers of a hidden life. What could a seemingly normal man be hiding behind his charming smile? A life of deception, betrayal, and secrets that would shock everyone in the courtroom. And now, the truth is about to unravel, piece by piece. The tension builds. You can feel the quiet heartbeat of suspense echoing through the room. Every step, every glance could tip the scale. Will the judge uncover the reality before it's too late, or will years of deception remain hidden forever? This is not just a story of divorce, it's a tale of secrets, lies, and revelations that will make you question how well you really know the people closest to you. The courtroom was unusually quiet for a Monday morning. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting geometric patterns on the polished wooden floor. Every seat was occupied, yet the focus was not on the crowd but on her, the woman who had chosen to file for divorce quietly, without any fanfare, without the need to be noticed. Her name was Elena Martinez, a woman whose life had been defined by subtle strength and quiet resilience. To the outside world, she appeared composed, even serene, but behind the calm surface lay years of frustration, pain, and the weight of unspoken truths. She clutched the folder to her chest, the papers inside documenting a life that had grown increasingly intolerable. She wasn't just ending a marriage, she was reclaiming her identity. Her husband, Michael, had always been charming. Friends called him charismatic, a man who could light up any room with his smile. To neighbors and colleagues, he was the perfect husband and father, the kind of man people admired. But Elena knew differently. Over the years, the mask had slipped in small, almost imperceptible ways. Odd text messages, late-night phone calls, unexplained absences, they all formed a pattern she could no longer ignore. As she approached the bench, the judge, Judge Harrison, looked up. His eyes were sharp, trained not only to see what was written in the files, but also to read between the lines. He noticed her calm demeanor, the way she carried herself, and he sensed a deeper story. There was a tension in the air that went beyond legal procedures, a tension that spoke of hidden truths waiting to be revealed. Elena's voice was steady as she presented her petition. She detailed the reasons for the divorce with clarity and poise, avoiding the temptation to let emotion dominate her words. Every sentence was deliberate, measured, and calculated to convey the gravity of the situation without exaggeration. Michael sat silently, his expression a careful mask of composure, yet there was a flicker of unease in his eyes, subtle but undeniable. He had counted on this divorce being quiet, routine, and unremarkable. But Elena had chosen a different path. Judge Harrison leaned back in his chair, observing the dynamic. He was experienced enough to know that appearances often concealed the reality beneath. Something about Michael's posture, the slight tension in his hands, the carefully rehearsed smile suggested that the surface calm hid a life far more complicated than anyone in the room could imagine. The proceedings continued, with the usual formalities, but Judge Harrison's attention remained fixed. He began reviewing the documentation carefully, noticing inconsistencies that might have gone unnoticed by a less observant eye. Financial records didn't match, timelines contradicted personal accounts, and there were subtle clues pointing toward a double life, one that Michael had gone to great lengths to conceal. Outside the courtroom, Elena's attorney, a sharp and EMP, a athletic woman named Rebecca, whispered reassuring words. "You've done everything right," she said. "Now we let the truth speak for itself." Elena nodded, her jaw tight with determination. She wasn't seeking vengeance. She sought clarity, justice, and a way to move forward without carrying the burden of lies any longer. As the day progressed, Judge Harrison began to uncover details that painted a very different picture of Michael's life. There were financial accounts hidden under different names, trips he had taken under the guise of work, and communications that suggested relationships he had never disclosed. Each revelation was a thread unraveling the fabric of the life he had carefully constructed. Elena listened quietly, her expression unreadable, She had expected betrayal, but the scale of deception still shocked her. This was not just the end of a marriage, it was an awakening. The man she had shared years with had led a parallel life, one that had existed in shadows and secrets, yet amidst the shock and heartbreak, there was a sense of empowerment. Elena realized that by stepping forward, by filing quietly yet courageously, she had taken control. She was no longer a passive participant in a life dictated by someone else's lies. Each revelation in the courtroom was a step toward freedom, a reclaiming of her own narrative. The courtroom drama unfolded with the tension of a cinematic thriller. Every glance, every pause, every subtle reaction told a story deeper than the legal documents on the table. People in the courtroom began to sense the gravity of the situation. What seemed like a routine divorce case was transforming into a story of exposure, truth, and human vulnerability. Judge Harrison's questions were precise, probing not just the facts, but the intentions and behaviors underlying them. Mr. Martinez, he asked, can you explain these discrepancies in your financial records? Michael's carefully maintained composure faltered, if only for a moment. His hands trembled slightly, and the confidence that had once been so convincing now seemed strained under scrutiny. Elena observed quietly, noting the subtle cracks in the facade. Each piece of evidence presented was a testament to the meticulous care she had taken in documenting her case. She had known that emotions alone would not suffice. Truth, supported by facts, would carry the day. As the chapter of this courtroom session drew to a close, there was a palpable shift. Elena felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. The quiet decision to file for divorce had set in motion events that would expose hidden lives and ultimately lead to clarity and resolution. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of agency, a power derived not from aggression, but from truth, preparation, and courage. Outside, sunlight reflected off the courthouse windows, and Elena walked away with her head held high. Behind her, the echoes of revelations would ripple through the courtroom, leaving an indelible mark on everyone involved. The first chapter of this journey was complete, but the story was far from over. The hidden life that Michael had tried so desperately to conceal was only beginning to be revealed, and the consequences would be profound, shaping the path for both their futures. The courtroom felt heavier that afternoon. Every word spoken seemed to hang in the air, charged with anticipation. Elena sat quietly, her composure unshaken, but inside a storm of emotions brewed. She had already discovered the cracks in Michael's carefully constructed life. Yet what was coming next promised to be far more devastating. Judge Harrison called Michael to the stand again. This time, the focus was sharper, the tone more deliberate. The subtle smile that had once masked his secrets now faltered under the weight of evidence meticulously presented by Elena and Rebecca. Financial documents, emails, and travel records were laid bare, each one a piece of the puzzle exposing his double life. The first revelation stunned everyone. Michael had been funneling significant amounts of money into accounts hidden under aliases. The amounts weren't minor. They were substantial enough to indicate premeditation, deceit, and manipulation. Whispers ran through the courtroom, but Elena remained silent, her eyes fixed on him. This was not about public humiliation. It was about unveiling the truth. Next came the personal betrayals. Evidence of undisclosed relationships surfaced, meetings, messages, and trips that Michael had concealed for years. Each revelation was like a hammer striking the illusion he had so carefully maintained. Friends, colleagues, and family members who had once trusted him now began to question everything. Michael's defense wavered. He tried to explain, to minimize, to rationalize, but the layers of deception were too thick to gloss over. Judge Harrison's gaze was unwavering, piercing through every word, every hesitation. He didn't just see the legal facts. He saw the human reality, the betrayal, the manipulation, the consequences of a life built on lies. Elena's voice remained calm when she finally spoke. She recounted her experiences with clarity and precision, choosing each word carefully. Her testimony was not fueled by anger, but by the relentless pursuit of truth. She described the emotional toll of living with a man who led a secret life, the silent erosion of trust, and the psychological strain that had built over the years. The courtroom absorbed every detail. People were captivated not just by the scandal, but by the courage Elena displayed. It was one thing to endure betrayal in private, but to confront it publicly, thoughtfully, and without losing one's dignity, that commanded respect. As the session progressed, Judge Harrison began connecting dots that Michael himself seemed to overlook. Patterns emerged, timelines aligned, and the full scope of his hidden life became undeniable. It was no longer a matter of speculation. The truth was incontrovertible. The tension reached its peak when Michael, facing irrefutable evidence, finally admitted to aspects of his double life. There was no theatrical confession, no dramatic outburst, just a quiet, defeated acknowledgement of reality. Elena's strength lay not in his admission, but in the preparation and courage that had brought her to this moment. She had turned the tables without losing control, without giving him the satisfaction of spectacle. Outside the courtroom, spectators whispered about the unfolding drama. Some were shocked, others fascinated, but all were united in witnessing a profound human story, a story of deceit, courage, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Elena emerged from the session feeling a mixture of relief, validation, and empowerment. She had faced deception head-on, and in doing so, she reclaimed a part of herself that had been overshadowed by lies. Judge Harrison, respected for his fairness and discernment, would later note in his summary, "This case illustrates not only the legal complexities of divorce, but the human dimensions of trust, betrayal, and resilience. What appears simple on the surface often conceals profound truths beneath." By the end of the proceedings, the path was clear. The divorce was more than a legal resolution, it was a psychological liberation. Elena had confronted the shadows, exposed hidden realities, and emerged stronger. Michael's life, now laid bare, would have to reckon with the consequences of long-concealed actions. For Elena, the journey was transformative. She had started as a quiet woman filing for divorce in the hope of anonymity, and she emerged as a figure of strength, clarity, and courage. The courtroom, with its wooden benches and sunlit windows, had become the stage for a story far larger than legal documents. It was a story of human resilience and the ultimate pursuit of truth. And while the echoes of revelations would linger for Michael, the true victory lay in Elena's hands. The power to reclaim her life, her dignity, and her future. Life often hides truths behind layers of appearances. People may lead double lives, conceal secrets, or betray trust in subtle ways, but courage and preparation can bring clarity. Elena's story teaches us that strength is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, deliberate, and patient. True power lies in facing deception with dignity, pursuing truth relentlessly, and reclaiming one's life without losing composure. The ultimate lesson: honesty, courage, and self-respect are the keys to liberation from deceit, and truth will always find its way to light.